So now that we worked on this chat screen and we are able to output these chat messages, there's in the end only one feature that's missing in this app, and that would be push notifications. I want to make sure that users receive a push notification whenever a new message arrives. So if the app is not opened and a new message is written by some other user, a push notification should arrive, and when users tap that notification, the app should open up. That's the goal. And thankfully, that's also something that can easily be implemented with help of Firebase. There, in your Firebase project, you have this engage area, and there you have this messaging feature, this messaging service. And that's exactly the service we're now going to use, because this messaging service can be used to send push notifications to both Android and iOS devices. Now, to get started with Firebase push notifications and Flutter, it's best if you search for Flutter Firebase push notification or push notifications, because that will lead you to the official Firebase documentation, and there to an article, which I also attached to this lecture though, which in the end walks you through all the required setup steps you should go through to make sure that your app is capable of receiving push notifications. Because especially for iOS, there are a couple of steps you must go through to ensure that you can receive and handle push notifications. So therefore now we're going to walk through these iOS and Android setup steps, though these iOS steps will only matter to you if you're on a macOS device. Otherwise, you won't be able to build for iOS anyways, and you won't be able to configure your project for receiving push notifications. It is unfortunately as it is, that is a restriction applied by Apple. So to set up push notifications for iOS devices, you should open Xcode, which is an app provided by Apple for macOS. And if you don't have Xcode on your macOS device yet, you can install it through the App Store on your macOS device. And with Xcode opened, you then should open an existing project or file. And you should navigate to your chat app folder, to your Flutter project folder, there to the iOS folder. And then, as mentioned here in the official Firebase documentation, open the runner XC workspace file in that iOS folder. So this file here, open it with Xcode. And once you did open it, you have to enable push notifications as described here on this external link. Now for that, you need to do a couple of things. For a start, you should select your runner project here in Xcode. And under Signing and Capabilities, you should click on Plus Capability, and then there search for Push and add push notifications by double-clicking on it. Now once you do that, you will most likely get an error here. And you might have even gotten an error here in that signing area before even adding push notifications. Because you now must assign a development account, a development team to this iOS app that you're building here. And for that, you actually need to create an Apple developer account. You also learn about this here in the official documentation. And here you also find more information about this developer account and a link to that account page. There you can sign in with your Apple ID. And once you did that, you can create your Apple developer account. Now, for certain features, like for example publishing your app in the Apple App Store, you will actually need a paid developer account. So you will need to pay a yearly fee to use these extra features. For testing push notifications with a local device, with your own device, you won't need that though. And that's, by the way, also important. Push notifications on iOS can only be tested with a real device, not with a simulator. But I'll get back to this later. So you need to create such an Apple developer account, but you won't need to pay for it. And with such an account created, the main error you might have gotten before here, where you might have not have a team selected here, should go away. Now you might still get another error here that, for example, the bundle identifier is not available, which is the case for me here. To fix this, you can tweak this identifier here and, for example, rename it to chat app, Flutter, test, or anything like this, and then try again until Xcode succeeds setting up this project for push notifications. That's the first step then. We will also need this developer account again later, but that was the first step. As a next step, as mentioned in the official documentation, you also must enable background fetch and remote notifications in your project. This is done by adding another capability, and that's the background modes capability, where you then should select remote notifications and background fetch, as mentioned. Once you did that, there's one last step left. You need to go to your Apple developer account, and there, under certificates, identifiers, and profiles, you should go to keys. In that keys area, you then should add a new key, and you should choose Apple Push Notifications Service. Now in my case here, I have too many keys. So I'll first of all get rid of some of the existing keys, which I don't need anymore. And with that done, I can create a new key and now select this Apple Push Notifications Service key here. This will be required for making sure that push notifications can be sent to iOS devices. Now you must give this key a name, like Flutter, chat app, test, or anything like this, and then click continue and register, and then you should download this key. So it's in the end a file that gets downloaded here. Now that this key was created and downloaded, we can move on with the next steps here, where we have to upload this Apple Push Notification Authentication key to Firebase. For that, as we're instructed here, back in our Firebase project console, we should go to Project Settings and then there to the Cloud Messaging tab. So here in Firebase, we can click on this gear icon to go to Project Settings, and then there, Cloud Messaging. In that Cloud Messaging area, we should select Upload Certificate. So in the end here, in the Project Settings, we should go to this iOS area and then select Upload here. And then look for that key file you just downloaded. So in my case, this file here, open it, and then enter the key ID, which you do find here in your Apple developer account, and add this key ID here. And then enter your team ID, and that can be found in your developer account as well. You find it in the top right corner. Of course, you should use your team ID here. And this should now be entered here as well. And then you can upload this key. And with that APN authentication key uploaded here, we're finally done with that setup step here. Please note that here in the end, it recommended to upload a certificate, but as you saw in the Firebase project page, uploading such an authentication key was recommended. And that's the approach I chose here. So therefore, we're now done with that, finally, and we just have to finish the Android setup. And there, thankfully, it's much easier, because there, for one, we can also test push notifications on an emulator, not just on a real device, as it's the case for iOS. And we also don't have to go through any extra setup steps. So that's quite straightforward. And therefore, the only remaining step here is to install the Firebase Cloud Messaging plugin by running this command in our Flutter project. So here in the terminal, I'll run flutter pub add Firebase Messaging. And with that done, I will shut down the running app process and restart it from scratch to make sure that everything works correctly there. And we should therefore now be ready to also add some code to our application that allows us to receive push notifications.